Now moving to our next story, Venezuela's interim leader Delcy Rodríguez has urged US President Donald Trump to end the blockade and sanctions targeting her country, describing the two nations as friends and signaling a shift towards cooperation after the US capture and removal of Nicolas Maduro. Rodríguez made the appeal in a speech broadcast on state television on February 27th, calling for an immediate end to what she called punitive measures such as the December blockade of sanctioned oil vessels. The move comes as Rodríguez has worked closely with Washington since taking power, repealing sanctions and passing an amnesty law to accelerate a diplomatic thaw. The US Treasury has already eased a long-standing oil embargo and issued licenses to some multinationals to operate in the Venezuelan oil sector. In his latest State of the Union address, Trump said the United States received more than 80 million barrels of Venezuelan oil, highlighting a growing energy partnership. Listen in.
Presidente Trump, como amigo, como socio, que estamos abriendo una nueva agenda de cooperación con los Estados Unidos, cese ya a las sanciones y cese al bloqueo contra nuestra patria, porque ese bloqueo también es contra la juventud.
And now joining us live, we have retired Major General A.K. Sea-Watch, who is a geostrategic expert located in New Delhi. Major General, how would a lift on the blockade and sanctions affect everyday Venezuelans, and how would it affect Venezuela's business relations with the global community?
You know, one must understand Venezuela is an oil-rich country. In fact, they have the maximum reserve in the world, 303 billion barrel. And the second one comes Saudi, which is about 267 billion barrel. So as far as the oil is concerned, that was the point where USA wanted to always have a control on Venezuela. And since it is the Western Hemisphere, the control has to be absolute. And that's how that it wanted a regime change in Venezuela. It wanted Nicolas Maduro to mend its ways, but he did not. So therefore, they launched a raid there, and they have taken Nicolas Maduro, and now the trial is going on. And now the Delcy Rodríguez is the acting president, and Delcy Rodríguez now has to toe the line which American want. What does the American want? The American want to control the complete oil fields of Venezuela, and that's what it now. 80 million barrel is coming from Venezuela to US, and then it will be refined there, and then it will be sold. Now, so the lucrative thing as far as Venezuela is concerned is the oil, and the US want to totally control it. It has also put embargo on Venezuela that it cannot sell its oil directly. And that is where it was going to Cuba, it was going to Mexico, and it was going to other countries. That has been stopped completely, and there is embargo. So the economy of Venezuela is suffering. After this embargo has been put, you find the inflation has increased in Venezuela, unemployment was already there, and therefore what acting President Delcy Rodríguez is requesting the US to lift those sanctions. Whether the US will agree or not, the time will only tell. But what does the US want? The US want complete control of the oil fields of Venezuela. It will like its own oil company to function there. It will then refine and sell it. This is the basic aim of US, total control of own oil field, and any trade and all will be going, it will be routed and it will be monitored by the US. It will not permit the Venezuela to sell oil to countries like Cuba, Mexico, those countries, or Colombia, those countries which are not having good relationship with US. US want to have the regime change in those countries also, whether it is Cuba or Colombia, and also Mexico.
Major General A.K. Sea-Watch, could you please just unmute yourself as we have lost your audio here in the studio?
No, can you hear me please?
Yes, we can hear you. Thanks so much.
So I continue from where we left. I'm just saying that as far as the US is concerned, will have absolute control on Venezuela, and it is the oil where the US is interested, and Venezuela can only sell the oil the way the US wants. So $80 million is now 80 million barrel is going from Venezuela to US. US will refine it and further sell it. So as on today, Venezuela is in total control of US. But at the same time, the US will also see the economy of Venezuela is slightly improved. It will now able to give some funds to Venezuela in time to come, because it doesn't want Delcy Rodríguez, who is cooperating with the American administration to fall, in the sense if the inflation is very high, unemployment is increasing, then there can be a protest against her. So I suppose that in the long run the US will do. But what will happen now is that the Venezuela government will not able to sell oil to the country like China or a country like Cuba, Colombia or Mexico. That restriction US is unlikely to lift, but at the same time it will look after the economy. As far as US is concerned, their main aim is to completely control the Western Hemisphere. And Venezuela is very important for them since it is oil rich country. At the same time, it will now go on Cuba and Colombia in time to come. That is possibility of a next attempt which US will do in these countries to have a regime change or have a regime which is pro-US.
Major General AK Sea-Watch, thank you so much for your time and sharing your thoughts with us today. Now, moving to our next story, Indian Trade Minister Piyush Goyal has stated that the sanctity of the US-India trade deal is both ways. He has added that the